Assalamualaikum and good day everybody. Today we will discuss our next topic, which is on management, decision and control. This topic and the topics that we will be discussing in the next few weeks will be included in your final exam. The main textbook for this topic is the Luton's book, International Management, Culture, Strategy and Behavior. I am not sure what version of book that you are using, but for the 8th edition, it is on this chapter. I do not know which chapter number, but this is the name of the chapter. It varies according to the book that you are using. Some objectives today, we will compare examples of decision making in different countries. We will also discuss the major factors influencing or affecting the degree of decision making authority given to overseas units. This is more applicable to multinational companies. We will also compare and contrast direct controls and indirect controls. Next, we describe some of the major differences in the ways multinational companies control their operations. Lastly, we will discuss some of the specific performance measures used to control international operations. Managerial decision-making process involves choosing a course of action among several alternatives. Usually, the process is linear, but it is common for managers to look back, or to go backwards in their decision-making process. The involvement of managers in the procedure will depend on the structure of subsidiary and also locus of decision making. If you can still remember what we have learned in basics of management, locus of decision making is the degree to which decisions are made in the higher level of organizational hierarchy or the lower level of organizational hierarchy. It will depend on the culture, of course, of the country where the company is operating in. It will also depend on the type of company, and also the type of operation the company is running. The decision-making process usually starts with the first stage, problem perception. When we say problem, this is not, we are not referring to huge problems such as how to solve poverty and so on. Just issues in management. It can be issues of quality. It can be issues in hiring high quality employees and so on. Next is problem identification. We identify which problem that we want to solve. In all managerial functions, there are always issues, but some issues are bigger and some issues are more urgent than others. Next, we formulate the problem and search for alternatives. We present some options, how to solve the problem that we have identified. Next, we evaluate those alternatives and choose the best alternative to solve the problem. Next, we start our operation, we implement our strategy, and then we implement control. Control here, if you can still remember what you have learned in basics of management, it is just a measure of how effective your decision making is, in comparison to the problems. I present to you a case of Ford in India. This is a case of a car produced especially for the Indian market by Ford. Ford is an American company. As we have discussed in the first few weeks, American cars are usually bigger, but when they come to the Indian market around late 1990s, they have misinterpreted the Indian market. They do not, they were not aware that many of the men, they wear turbans. Many of the ladies, they still wear saris and so on. So they will need a higher level of between the roof and also the hood of the car. They will also need a wider level of car door for the ladies in sari to get in the car. So we go through the case step by step. Around 1991, this is when India as a nation started to flourish. This is when the Prime Minister he started various series of economic reforms, a lot of economic initiatives to strengthen the economy. This, as a result, opened up the Indian market to foreign companies. As a market of 820 million people, it is an attractive market for most multinational corporations. In international business, we have discussed about the attractiveness of emerging markets. One of the attractiveness of emerging markets is the number of population. Think about Malaysia, think about Indonesia, China. At one point of time, very large population serves as a market, and then this population, they are economically advancing, so the appetite to spend is higher than previous generations. Back to the case of Ford. In 1999, almost all of the major automakers of the world had a presence in the Indian market. Ford wants to have a chunk of that market as well. And the models that were offered in the Indian market were around 200,000 rupees to 425,000 rupees. In 1999, it was around 10,000 ringgit to 23,000 ringgit. This is a car advertisement for Ford Icon, the car specially designed for Indian market. This is the advertisement around that time. If you can look closely, it's a car. There's a man, showing that usually males are the one making decision around the household during that time. Pay your attention in the tagline here: desk office and home responsibilities. Thankfully, that's the right in between. So this is really targeted for the middle income earners. For a population of 820 million people, there must be a large chunk of that market segment. So it is important for Ford to do this properly. The introduction of Ford Icon happens. This is an introduction based on the parts of Ford Fiesta. Around that time, Ford Fiesta, they look like this. Around 600,000 rupees, around 32,000 ringgit, based on the price range in 1999 and the monetary exchange in 1999. But they make different changes they raise the rear headrooms. It's much higher if you can notice, to accommodate man-in turbines. They also adjust the doors. If you notice, it's slightly larger than Ford Fiesta. This is to accommodate women in saris. Also, they fit intake valves to avoid auto flooding. Some parts of India are prone to flood. It is also important for them to toughen up shock absorber. Why? So that they can handle city streets. Around that time, streets in India maybe still have several loopholes. Also, they adjust air conditioning based on the weather in India. So this entails a lot of operational based decision making. So we look into it one by one. What is the problem perception here? The Indian and American market is different. So when they identify the problem, they also identify that there are differences in weather, differences in culture, habits, and also spending. After they identify the problem, they formulate the problem. So what they do, they identify and make sense of the differences based on the resources that they have. In this case, the resources that they have is Ford Fiesta. Next, they search for alternatives and also they evaluate their alternatives. Should they be a new model or they remodel an old design? So what they chose was they remodel an old design, where they used some parts of Ford Fiesta to build a new one that is more cost efficient. So they start the operation, they implement, and they control. So what is the element of control here? The progress of sales. They have to monitor. So in that regard, what they do is they measure what they have done in comparison to what the problem and goal that they have identified. In making decisions, there are several factors that would influence centralization or decentralization of decision making, especially in subsidiary operations. When you talk about subsidiary, we will talk about the multinational company arms or branch in a certain host country. Some factors that influence centralization, if the company is large in size and they have large capital investment, so the more or less the decision making will be centralized to the multinational company headquarters. If the subsidiary has high importance for the MNC, if the environment is highly competitive, important. Also, if there's a strong volume, unique cost relationship or high degree of technology, so the cost will be higher. There will be strong importance attached to the brand name and so on. It will encourage centralization in decision making. If there is low level of product diversification, for instance, oil companies, how can you diversify oil? If you have homogeneous product lines, if you have small geographic distance between the home office or headquarters and subsidiary, for instance, BP in Netherlands, British Petroleum, if there is high interdependence between the units, or you have few competent managers in the whole country, so you have low trust with the managers in the whole country, and you have long and large experience in international business, that will encourage centralization. Several factors encouraging decentralization. This is the extent to which decision making is focused on the subsidiary in comparison to the headquarter. The first factor is if the subsidiary is small in size, and also it's small in capital investment. This shows that the subsidiary is low in importance for the multinational company. In that regard, it is better for the decision making to be made by the subsidiary in comparison to the headquarter. If the subsidiary is located in a stable environment, it is also better for the decision to be decentralized. If the subsidiary has weak volume to unit cost relationship, so this shows the small capital investment and low importance. And if the subsidiary has moderate to low degree of technology, it shows that the cost of capital is low in that location. So it is better for the decision making to be decentralized. If the subsidiary has little importance attached to brand name, patent rights and so on, decision making should be made by the subsidiary. If there is a marketing wise, if there is a high level of product diversification and there is diversity in product lines, this is important for the subsidiary to make their decision. Why? Because high product diversification means high response to the local market. MNC managers are usually from Western countries. They are usually from high geographical and cultural distance from the host market. For instance, Nestle in Indonesia, Nestle in Swiss may not understand fully the taste and preferences of Indonesian market. So it is better for them to hand out the decision making to their Indonesian subsidiary. If there is a large geographical distance, we have talked about this, and there is low interdependence between units. So if the unit is independent, the subsidiary is independent, why not? Some management risk factors. If there are a lot of highly competent managers in that host country, the multinational company can decentralize this decision making to the local or Indonesian managers in this case. If the subsidiary, if the multinational company has little experience in international business, it is better for them to not make big decisions in geographically distant market. It is better for them to hand out the decision making to the subsidiary. There are some cultural differences, and we will provide to you the comparative examples of decision making across cultures. Last few weeks we have learned about power distance, collectivism and individualism. This will highly influence how decisions are being made in different countries. Decision-making philosophies and practices, they differ from country to country. Do international operations use similar decision-making practices? In some extent, yes. In some extent, no. For instance, French and Danish or people from Denmark managers, they use different approaches to decision making. Each more adapt at different stages of the process. Here, for instance, French do not value time as much as their European counterparts. Germans, on the other hand, they will place more focus on productivity and quality of goods. They have more focus on that than managing their subordinates. This is one of the reasons is because they practice co-determination. This is a legal system that requires workers and managers to discuss major decisions. Okay, we go back to the differences in power distance across countries. This is the difference between Denmark and Germany. Denmark is blue, Germany is purple. In terms of power distance, all of them are applicable, but even more so, power distance is highly relevant in decision making. Germany is higher in power distance than Danish. Therefore, German multinational companies tend to be more centralized, they tend to be more autocratic, they tend to be more hierarchical. Now that is within region, differences in Western countries. The practices of Eastern and Western countries are also visible. For instance, Japanese management and other European management can be highly different. Japanese, they practice when-we-say decision making. This is when any changes in procedures, any messy decisions, this includes routines, tactics, and also strategies, are organized by those directly affected by the changes. So here it means that there will be highly and heavily placed discussion within department. Only then the decision will go up to the higher level of management. The benefit here, it is more systematic, but it is more time consuming. The ideas will bounce around in one level first. The ideas that have passed through this level, they go up another level into a higher hierarchy. Then they go up to the highest level for approval. An in-depth systematic analysis has been done on the Japanese upper civil service around late 1800s. You can see this, you can read it here if you are interested. A large part of decision making is focused on quality. Quality or total quality management is an organizational strategy and the accompanying techniques that will result in the delivery of high quality products or services to customers. Total quality management is critical to achieve world-class competitiveness, especially in manufacturing. In relation to that, concurrently, engineering and also interfunctional teams, they also practice total quality management. Designers, engineers, production specialists, and customers, they work together to develop new products. This is when a sense of empowerment is in place. This is when the management give individuals and teams resources, information, and authority that they need to develop ideas and to implement them. The ISO 9000 certification is indirectly related to total quality management. This is to ensure quality products and services. If you can still remember, they are originated from manufacturing practices. You want highly standardized product, so you have to place high discipline and high quality management to to have all those products uniform and standardized. The areas examined include design, process control, purchasing, service, inspection, testing and training. But if you are working with humans, it is possible for them to deliver ununiform or unstandardized results. So one of the key principles in quality is ongoing training. This is when employees are given wide variety of training in terms of statistical quality control and team meetings. This is designed to generate ideas. The objective is to apply the principle of Kaizen, which is a Japanese term for continuous improvement. The old or traditional belief on quality, quality is the responsibility of the people in the quality department. No, because quality is everyone's job. If one department did some mistakes, it will influence other department as well. Let's say if the accounting department made some mistakes in analyzing the worksheets and so on, it will influence budgeting, which is under finance department. Training is costly, of course, but what is more expensive is the mistake that you have to render, the mistake that you have to suffer if it is high scale. Can you imagine if you have a product that is not up to standard? A customer, they complain, they will bring the matter to court. It will cost you a lot of money. It will cost you your good name, and also reputation. New quality programs will have high initial costs. Not really. They do not really have upfront cost. It will cause a lot of issues about cost here. And this is something arguable. It is human to make mistakes, yes, but you can train yourself to reduce and learn from your mistakes. Some other aspects, you can focus on major defects, but you can ignore the minor ones. The new belief regarding quality is minor mistakes can amount to many minor mistakes, which amounts to major defects. Quality improvements are made in small continuous steps. This is one of the old belief in quality. Quality improvement in the new era is quality improvement as a whole. All department has to practice quality improvement. The old belief in quality is you must make decisions quickly. Haste makes waste. But if you think about your decisions carefully, you will save a lot of resources. Next, quality programs are best oriented towards products and manufacturing. This is true, but quality is important in all areas, especially in administration and service. Have you all been to a hospital and you are treated badly by the doctors? You will think it will influence your perception of the organization that you are focusing on. The organization where you are a customer. Next is after a number of quality improvements, customers are no longer able to see additional improvements. That is not true. Other than Some other old ideas on quality will include good ideas can be found throughout the organization. Now, this is a very internal approach in understanding quality, but ideas can be found everywhere. Yeah? This is the same with suppliers. Yeah? The old belief about quality is that supplier has to be price competitive. This is a fancy word for cheap. Yeah? Resources must be cheap. Yeah? But suppliers need to be quality competitive as well. What are the differences in total quality management? Eastern perspective versus Western perspective. To understand this matter more carefully, I choose one industry, and two countries. The industry that I choose is the automotive industry. Mercedes-Benz is a brand from Germany, while Toyota is from Japan. You can read both of the statements carefully. According to the statement of quality assurance of Mercedes-Benz, all pre-owned vehicle undergoes rigorous 215 multi-point inspection, trained by technician who conducts inspection on the engine compartment, chassis, body, and so on. It is then road test, which is conducted first-hand from the driver's seat to the check on instruments, vibration, noise, and more. The post-road test will be included as final inspection before vehicle receives a stamp of approval. Now let's see the difference of quality assurance in Toyota, which represents Japan. Since its founding, Toyota has steadfastly carried out quality assurance activities, resulting in top ratings from our customers. The core principles behind our company's quality assurance system includes customer first, quality first, and go see at the scene. It is established when the company was founded. The principles have been passed on and inform every organizational level of today's Toyota. Now, what is the difference here? Quality assurance in Mercedes-Benz in Germany, it looks linear, from one point to another. But quality assurance in Japan is, if you want to visualize it, it looks round. Because it covers everybody, it covers all departments. Not saying Mercedes is better than Toyota or Toyota is better than Mercedes, but this goes to show how countries are different in terms on how they view things. We have discussed this back. Even practical things, Eastern and Western view are quite different, but we do the same thing. Same goes for quality. Quality is important for both cultures, but the way they do quality is different. This is another example from a manager, about a friend who has worked for a factory in Japan and the US. I have a friend who is responsible for two factories, one in Japan and one in the United States. He explained why the factory in Japan always outperforms the factory in the US. They both set the same target and they both may hit the targets. But when the Japanese hit it, they keep going, where the Americans tend to stop and rest on their laurels before pursuing the next goal. In the end, the Japanese achieve more. So here, nothing wrong with having multi goals, and also nothing wrong with keep on doing the same thing if it works. But here you can see the difference: short-term orientation and long-term orientation. US goal focus based on its short-term orientation in comparison to Japan's overall focus, inherent from its long-term orientation. Let's go to decision and control linkages. Decision and control, they go hand by hand. Yeah? Decision making and controlling are interlinked functions. The process of evaluating results in relation to plans or objectives and deciding what, if any, action to take. Yeah? Multinational companies will use different methods to control their overseas operations or to control their subsidiaries. Usually it's a combination of direct and indirect controls. It is also a combination of highly quantifiable methods or highly qualitative methods. Heavily quantifiable methods, you can see in terms of their goals. What are their goals? To have less than 10% customer returns. Yeah? Qualitative approaches, you can see our goal is to have happier customers. That is qualitative. Yeah, some multinational companies, they prefer decentralized approaches. Some companies, they prefer greater centralization. It depends on the operation of the company. It depends on the characteristics of the subsidiary itself. Yeah. We will discuss direct and indirect control approaches. Yeah. We go back to the graph. Yeah. Problem perception and control, they are interlinked. Yeah. Here, control is the measure of effectiveness of the decisions that have been made. There are some good and bad examples of managerial decisions in international management. Yeah, I give you two examples. One of them is Pringles. Once upon a time, Pringles introduced a flavor smoky bacon during the fasting month of Ramadan. What is wrong with this flavor? Nothing wrong. What is wrong with Ramadan? Also nothing wrong. But the decision to introduce this type of flavor in a very religious type of situation is not so favorable. Next, find out if bibimbap tastes as good as it sounds. This seems fine. Bibimbap is a Korean dish. What is wrong with this picture? Bibimbap is a rice dish, not a noodle dish, like what is pictured in this illustration. So it shows that this company didn't do its homework well. Yeah? So the question goes to, who makes all these decisions and what are the company's responses once all these decisions have come out? Clearly it will have a negative consequences. In terms of the controlling process, multinational companies, especially it depends, the multinational company headquarter and also the subsidiary may experience control problems. Yeah, the objectives of the overseas operation and the multinational company may conflict. Yeah, objective of port in the US and port in India may be different. Yeah, so that will cause some problems. Yeah, the objectives of the joint venture partners and corporate management also can be not similar. Yeah, because the differences in objectives, problems can happen. The degree of experience and competence in planning vary widely among managers running overseas unit. Yeah? As a headquarter, you do not know what kind of managers that you are. hiring, because those decisions are being made in the subsidiary level. Yeah? All managers have their own issues. Young managers, they are competent, but they can be a bit impatient. Yeah? Older managers may be not so efficient, but they are more experienced. Yeah? Same goes for education levels, gender, and so on. So the multinational company have little control over this type of decisions. Yeah? Also, there will be some basic philosophic agreements, disagreements about objectives and also policies of international corporations. Yeah? You can go back and read, or also you take into account the experience of people who are working in a multinational company. Yeah? This you can read on your own. Yeah? Models of PC manufacturing model. Yeah? How controlling process change. Yeah? Traditionally, it's usually focused on sales forecast. Yeah? You project a sales projection. Yeah? And then you decide on how much production that you want to do, and then you try to finish the products through sales. Yeah? And next comes the direct sales model. Yeah? The manufacturer orders a small number of parts, yeah, and it is also based on the orders by the customer. Yeah? The manufacturing will follow customer specification. It is highly personalized. Yeah? And the manufacturer ships the computers directly to the customer. This is cost effective, but you are not building a good relationship with your customer. For this model, you have good relationship with your customer, but it is highly expensive. Yeah? To personalize an item is expensive, especially in a manufacturing environment. Yeah? So now, the current trend in manufacturing is the hybrid model, yeah? Which combines the traditional model and also direct sales model. Now, this is when the manufacturer builds a shelves, yeah? The basic items to build a computer, and then ship to the distributor, and then you build it based on the order of your customer. So at the same time, you save costs and you have good relationship with your customer. So the point here is controlling process will change, you know, with changes in technology, consumer taste, competition, and so on. There are a few types of control: internal versus external focus control. Yeah? Here we will look at ways of organization, the way they use direct or indirect controls. So internal versus external, or direct versus indirect. Okay, we discuss a bit on internal and external control. Internal control is when a firm focuses on what it does best. External control refers to when the firm will focus on external changes. Both are important, but some firms they will focus on internal more than external. Some firms they will focus more on external than internal. An internal focus is needed to find out what customers want. If the firm is very focused on the customers, yeah, and if they are operating in a highly changeable environment, yeah, and to be prepared to respond appropriately. Yeah. Management always wants to ensure market for goods and services exists, because as an organization which exists in a dynamic environment, it is important for them to control the external environment. For instance, McDonald's, yeah, McDonald's is one of the firms that have balance in internal and external control. Yeah? The internal control for McDonald's is they are focusing on fast food. Yeah? We never see McDonald's venture into other industries. If they have ventured into other industries, it is likely that those ventures do not go through, or most likely that those ventures fail from the get-go. McDonald's external control is when they take note on customer preferences. Yeah? An example here is when they introduce vegetable-based burgers for people who do not eat animal products. Some cultures are more internal focused, some cultures are more external focused. Yeah? You can see the key differences here. Yeah? When an organization has internal control, usually they have a dominating attitude. Yeah? Always there is a conflict and resistance, yeah? And those conflict and resistance mean that that person has convictions. Yeah? They do not agree with the overall goal of the firm. Yeah? The focus is on the self, function, group, and also those organization itself. Always there is a discomfort when the environment seems out of control. Yeah? Toys R Us is one of the firms that has very high internal control. Firms with external control usually have a flexible attitude. They are willing to compromise and also keep overall peace. Usually, harmony, responsiveness, and sensibility are encouraged, and the focus is on others. Others here meaning customers, partners, and also colleagues. Also, the firm who has external control usually are comfortable with shifts and cycle. They are comfortable with trends. They are also comfortable with external changes. To do business with firms with high internal control, usually people play hardball or trying to win your objective. Yeah? If you are trying to do business with firms with external control, yeah, usually they go with softness and persistence, yeah, and to maintain long-lasting relationship. An example of a firm with high internal control is Toys R Us. An example of a firm with external control is Apple. You can differentiate the two. Some firms, they prefer direct control. This involves the use of face-to-face personal meetings for purpose of monitoring operations. You can see this if you are working in a multinational company. Yeah? If a top executive from the multinational company, they visit subsidiary to learn their problems and challenges. Firms who use direct control, usually they design structure that makes the subsidiary highly responsive to home office requests and communications. Usually the corporate structure is very interlinked to the multinational company headquarters. Firms that use indirect control, usually this involves the use of reports and also other written forms of communication. This is to control operations at subsidiaries. One of the ways of indirect control is financial statement. These are statements prepared to meet national accounting standards prescribed by the host country. These statements are prepared to comply with accounting principles and standards by the home country as well. Statements prepared to meet financial consolidation requirement of the home country as well. Both of these have to have some balance. You can see some major differences across countries. I give you the industry of supermarket industry. Yeah? We have Tesco from the UK. Tesco's implementation of control is focused on financial records. Their financial records are sophisticated and also heavily emphasized. The top management will focus on major problem areas, but they are not involved in micro methods of control. The control method is used for general guidance, not surveillance. Here, the operating units, including the subsidiary, have large amount of marketing autonomy. For instance, Tesco in Malaysia, they have freedom to tailor their marketing, but they follow Tesco UK's quality procedures. In comparison to Tesco, we have Carrefour, it depends on how you pronounce it, from France. Here, managers employ control systems closer to German. Control is used for surveillance and not guidance. It is centrally administered, it is less systematic, and less sophisticated. Here for Carrefour, performance and process are monitored. In comparison to Tesco, they look into the performance during the end of the year, for instance. But for Carrefour, they want to look at it monthly. To differentiate between the US and Europeans, American firms, they rely much more on reports and other performance-based data. This comes from Americans' focus on output control. But Europeans, they rely more heavily on behavioral control. What does this mean? Output control means sales. It means it can be illustrated in terms of profit, things that you can quantify. But Europeans, they rely more on behavioral control. In comparison to sales performance, for instance, Europeans will focus on employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, for example. Here, the control in American multinational companies will focus on more quantifiable and objective aspects of the foreign subsidiary. Control in European multinational companies, they are focused on qualitative aspects. Performance evaluation is also a mechanism of control. You do not have to think so complex about this. Even your CGPA is a mechanism of control. If the university system do not have the system of CGPA, how will you know if you are doing well in your studies or not? You cannot measure by the way you are feeling. I am happy today, so I am doing well today in university. It doesn't work that way. So here, especially within the context of management, there are three common performance measures. Financial performance, measured by profit and return on investment. We also have quality performance. It is usually controlled by quality circles. Quality circles is a group of employees who meet regularly to consider ways of resolving problems and improving production in their organization. Another measure is personal performance. How happy your employees are. It is typically judged through performance evaluation techniques. Financial performance is one of the most important aspects of control. The most important part of ROI or return on investment calculation is profit. Usually, it is manipulated by the management. The amount of profit is directly related to how well or how poorly a unit is judged to perform. But if you are doing business domestically, financial performance is easy to understand. But if you are doing business internationally, the performance of subsidiaries can be affected by currency fluctuations, which adds to the complexity of international business. For instance, if your sales, let's say if your sales are high, if your sales are high but the currency in that country is low, the amount reflected in your financial statement is still low. But if your sales are low but the currency is high, the number reflected in your financial performance is it's a nice number, so you can't really trust it. So you can trust it, but you have to look in further beyond the numbers. This is how Tesco does its financial control. They look into financial performance as other companies do. You can see here, other parts of UK, ROI is Ireland, Republic of Ireland. Sales increase along the years, but for Europe and Asia, decrease. So this is what type of decision must be made to make sense of the decline of sales. Performance evaluation is also a mechanism of control, especially for quality performance. Think about why our Japanese goods are perceived as higher quality than other countries. They have quality control center. Usually, Japanese firms, they train their people carefully. And also they stay on the technological cutting edge. They must be in the know of the current technology. They also focus on developing and bringing to market competitively priced goods. They also design and engineer and supply people to ensure product being produced at prices that customers can bear or that customers can afford. Next, they also use Kaizen method, which fosters continuous cost reduction efforts. As a comparison, you can see the differences in the automotive industry. These are brands from the Western countries. These are brands from Japan. You can see here the inventory turnover is quite low, but inventory turnover for Japanese brands are quite high. This is good because high inventory is good because you want to make sure all of your inventory are turned into sales. The higher it is, the higher sales you are producing. Next, you can put your focus on the work in progress. GM especially has so many work in progress, which is in general not so good. Honda, Nissan and Toyota have average 3.8 and 4. Finished good storage time, less storage time is better. They look similar, but in general, again, Japanese companies have less storage time. Inventory on the truck. You can see the comparison here. Again, generally less. Inventory at customer side also less. But focus here, percentage of change in manufacturing cost negative for Japanese firms, meaning that they have reduced costs. Percentage of late deliveries, that's normal, it can happen. 4.4%, 7.7%, 3% for these firms, but for Japanese firms, only 2%, 1%, and 0.44%. Next, let's see emergency costs. Very high emergency costs here, but quite low emergency costs over at the Japanese firm's side. So you can see here, in terms of performance, in terms of quality savings, Japanese firms are better than other firms. But again, things may change. This is a data from so many years ago. Things may change now. Performance evaluation as a mechanism of control. You can also focus on personnel performance. If your machineries are good, if your robots are good, but if your employees are not doing well, this means the firm is not doing so well. This is called employee or personnel performance. This is a periodic appraisal, performance of work performance. You have differences in performance appraisal, how you test performance in other countries. Usually, there's a comparative study. It is more encouraging in the UK, but more directive in Hong Kong. So here it depends on power distance of that country. Encouraging style may not work in Hong Kong. Directive style may not work in the UK. In terms of reward and employee monitoring, Japanese, they use a more social or group orientation. So bonus are being delivered through department days. But Americans, they use more individualistic approach. So bonuses are based on individuals. So here, Japanese will focus on how well you work with other people. Americans, they will appraise you. They will highly regard you if you work competitively. You also have assessment centers, which are evaluation tools used to identify individuals with potential to be selected for higher level positions. This type of assessment it originated from US multinational companies. You can see the differences here. This is the most reputable companies within 9 years. The most reputable company in 2010 was Google, but number one company in 2009 is Rolex. This is most reputable companies. They see overall performance, employee, financial performance, and so on. I don't think Google is not even here, even in the top 15. So as a summary, here decision making, there are many alternatives to decision making, and also they depend on many factors. There are many also challenges to implement total quality management. We also discuss control, which are evaluating results to plans and objectives. We also discuss the 3 most common performance measures. To those who are unable to attend the Microsoft Teams lecture, for attendance purposes, you answer this question. Based on your knowledge, which cultures are more likely to focus on external control, and which culture could consider direct controls more important than indirect? Also give your justification. Okay, till then, we will see you again next time for our next topic. Assalamualaikum, and thank you very much.